Jordan and Sam started their first real jobs the same month, at the same company, making almost the same salary. Both had access to the exact same retirement accounts. Both were told about a Roth IRA by the same HR person in the same onboarding meeting. Jordan filed it away as something to think about later, once the salary was bigger and there was actually money to spare. Sam opened one that same week with $60. Just $60. That single decision, made in the first month of two identical careers, is going to be the entire reason one of them retires with hundreds of thousands of dollars the other one never sees. Here's what makes a Roth IRA different from almost every other account the government lets you use, and why the difference is bigger than most people realize. With a traditional retirement account, you get a tax break today, but the government takes its cut later, on every dollar you eventually withdraw, including all the growth. With a Roth IRA, it's flipped. You pay the tax now, upfront on the money going in. And then something almost unfair happens. Every dollar that money earns after that, for decades, growing inside the account, is never taxed again. Not when it grows. Not when you take it out in retirement. The IRS looks at that money for the rest of your life and simply has no legal claim to it. For 2026, the contribution limit is $7,500 a year, or $8,600 if you're 50 or older. That's not a huge number on its own. But contribution limits aren't really the point. Time is the point. Let's do the math the way Sam's $60 actually plays out. Money contributed to a Roth IRA in your 20s doesn't just have 20 or 30 years to grow before retirement. It can keep growing completely tax-free for the rest of your life after that, too. Since a Roth IRA is one of the only retirement accounts with no required minimum distributions forcing you to pull money out on the government schedule. You can literally leave it alone for 50, 60 years if you want. A single dollar invested at 22, growing at a typical long-run market average, can be worth somewhere in the ballpark of 20 to 30 times itself by the time that person turns 70. The same dollar invested at 42 only has half as many decades to work with, and the math on that missing time is brutal, not gentle. Compounding doesn't apologize for a late start. It just quietly gives you a smaller number. Now, Jordan isn't lazy or careless. Jordan is doing something that feels completely rational. And this is the part that trips up genuinely smart people. Jordan is contributing to a traditional 401k instead, because the tax deduction shows up immediately, right there on the paycheck, and that feels like a win you can see today. The Roth version of that same decision feels like a loss today, since you're paying tax on money you don't even get to keep. This is a real and well-documented pattern in behavioral finance. People consistently overweight a benefit they can see immediately and underweight a much larger benefit that only shows up decades later. Jordan isn't making a math mistake. Jordan is making a very human mistake, choosing the version of the reward that arrives now. Here's where it gets expensive. Financial researchers who study this generally point out that most people's income and their tax bracket tends to rise over the course of a career. That means the tax rate Jordan is deferring today in an entry-level job is often lower than the tax rate Jordan will actually owe decades later when withdrawing that money in retirement, especially if decades of career raises and a paid-off mortgage have pushed the household into a higher bracket than anyone expected at 25. Jordan thought delaying the tax bill was the smart move. In a lot of real cases, it just moves the bill to a year when it costs more. Sam had one more advantage that almost nobody mentions, and it's the reason Sam wasn't afraid to start with just $60 in the first place. Unlike most retirement accounts, the contributions you put into a Roth IRA, not the earnings, just the original contributions, can be withdrawn at any time for any reason, with no tax and no penalty. That single rule quietly removes the biggest fear young workers have about locking money away. Sam wasn't gambling on some untouchable account. Sam was building an account that behaved like a safety net and a 50-year tax-free growth engine at the same time. Now, the honest part, because a Roth IRA is genuinely not the automatic right answer for everyone, no matter what any finance video tells you. If you're currently in your highest earning years and expect your income to actually drop significantly in retirement, the traditional account's upfront deduction might genuinely save you more money, and the honest answer is that nobody, including me, actually knows your future tax bracket with certainty. There's also an income ceiling on this account that catches high earners off guard. For 2026, the ability to contribute directly starts phasing out around $153,000 of income for a single filer and disappears entirely at $168,000. For married couples filing jointly, that range sits between roughly $242,000 and $252,000. Cross that line, and you can't just write a check to a Roth IRA anymore. Though many higher earners use a legal workaround called a backdoor Roth conversion, which is worth understanding on its own, and worth talking through with an actual tax professional before attempting it, because the paperwork can get genuinely messy if it's done wrong. And there's a deeper honesty underneath all of it. This account only works because of a 5-decade bet that the version of you at 70 is more important than the version of you right now, cash-strapped and 25, looking at a paycheck that already feels too thin. That is a genuinely hard trade to make when rent is due this week and retirement is an abstraction happening to someone who technically shares your name but doesn't feel real yet. Nobody gets a parade for opening an account with $60. There's no dramatic moment, just a form filled out once on a random Tuesday that nobody else in your life will ever know or care that you filled out. Sam still adds to that account today, decades later, on a fixed schedule, without thinking much about it. Jordan eventually opened one too, years later, once the paycheck felt bigger and safer, and it's a perfectly fine account, growing at a perfectly fine rate. It just started a decade later than it needed to, carrying a decade of missing compounding that no future contribution can ever fully buy back. Same starting salary, same company, same HR meeting. The only difference was which one of them decided that $60 right now mattered more than it looked like it did.